Hey everybody. So Axios put out a really interesting piece, and it's basically what foreign policy would look like under a Joe Biden presidency. And I found it pretty interesting. I disagreed with some of the things they said a little bit, and I found some of the things like a little bit. The main takeaway is a Joe Biden foreign policy would be nominally better than Trump. Not good, far from great, but it'd be better than Trump. And so let's just dig right into it. The title is Biden's Doctrine: Erase Trump, Re-Embrace the World. And so I'll also link the piece in the description in case people want to read along or check it out for themselves. So foreign policy will look drastically different if Joe Biden defeats President Trump in November. Advisors tell Axios, starting with a day one announcement that the U.S. is re-entering the Paris Climate Agreement and new global coordination of the coronavirus response. And so obviously getting back into the Paris Climate Agreement, that's a good thing. I mean, it's nowhere near where we need to be in terms of climate change, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's just not. It's better than Trump, but it's not good enough. But that's where we're at right now. If Trump's presidency started the America First era of withdrawal from global alliances, Biden's team says his presidency would be would be the opposite, a re-engagement with the world in an effort to rebuild those alliances fast. And so, I mean, this is a lot of there's talk later in the piece about how Biden is good at being cordial with people, good at making alliances. That's not super. That's not very substantive. That's my problem with that. You can't really like wrap your hands around that. These aren't like super specific policy, at least in terms of that. But we'll keep moving forward. Biden will be pressed in the coming months for more details about how his proposals have changed since his time as Barack Obama's vice president, but his choice of advisors and his remarks thus far serve as guideposts about his thinking. And so it's actually really interesting is because from reports that came out from the White House, and just the things people say is Biden was actually less, I guess imperialist would be the word to say, just less antagonistic on the world stage than Obama was, like in like negotiations that the two of them had. And so if that's actually true, that could be a good sign in terms of how Biden would lead as a president. But we'll see. And the piece gives a few specific examples a little bit later. Biden advisors who watched the 2008-09 financial crisis consume Obama's early days say that similarly, the domestic challenges posed by the coronavirus will demand much of the next administration's attention, while the global impacts may compete with other priorities. This is true. Obviously, I mean, we want to be thinking in terms of global, internationally, but honestly, America is doing one of the worst when it comes to handling coronavirus. I believe it's us, Brazil, and India are three countries that have just really, really poorly handled it. And so it makes sense to handle things domestically before like thinking big picture. So I don't really fault them for saying like, hey, we're this is where our focus is going to be, and obviously an election is coming up, and so it's just he wants to shore up his voters by saying, oh, you guys will be my top priority. Job one will be to get COVID under control. That's what they say. A former Colin Cowell, a former Biden aide who's familiar with his views, say if Biden is elected, day one is making sure that our approach to COVID and the associated economic crisis is coordinated internationally, as well as re-entering the Paris Accord to combat global warming. And so it's interesting they say global warming instead of climate change. But that's just, I mean, a little semantic thing. I think that getting back into the Paris Climate Accords, I think that that's something that we can definitely count on as one of the major campaign promises that Biden will keep, just because it'd be really weird for him not to keep it. I mean, everything suggests that he will. I know that some people, such as like a $15 an hour minimum wage, people don't think that Biden will do that. So we have to kind of like, that's why it's important when you're looking at politicians, you look at what they say, but you also have to look at like what they've done and like whether or not that signals that like what they're saying they'll do is actually something that they'll do. And I think that re-entering the Paris Accords is fairly realistic. Biden's advisors look at the world they could inherit and feel a sense of dread, urgency in every time zone. So this is where we get into things that scare me a little bit, but we'll keep going. Climate change, Iran's breakout time for a new nuclear weapon, North Korea's missile advancement, a revanchist Russia, and an assertive China. That last portion about China and Russia, that worries me. And the problem is that Donald Trump is no better. And that just seems to be the way the U.S. is moving, is we are going to be a lot more antagonistic towards China. And we do not want military action against China. And I mean, most people would just say, no duh, no duh, we don't want military action with China. But it's like, if you just keep pushing with sanctions and you keep ratcheting up the antagonistic rhetoric, there is a collision. There is that just builds and builds towards a collision. And we didn't have that with the Cold War, and that's great. It's unfortunate that we see like a Cold War II coming with Russia, but a new Cold War with China is also not a great thing, and it's like with these like sanctions and stuff that only hurts the people at the bottom. I mean, China is a little bit of a different situation than like Iran and Venezuela, but it's still it's not great. And so let's keep going a little bit. They also worry about the stress factors in World War II international architecture exacerbated by Trump's America First approach. At the top of the agenda, the outset will be signaling to our closest democratic allies that we are back and alliances and partnerships matter. This is, more, I feel like signaling this is, I mean, obviously Donald Trump has not been great in dealing with foreign leaders. And so this kind of signaling may be important to some of the people that, that really matters to. Still not super substantive, but, so in July 2008, Obama did a world tour promising to end the Bush administration's foreign policy and approach and embrace multilateralism. The pandemic has ruled out globetrotting for Biden this summer, but his foreign policy approach looks similar, starting with a pledge to unwind Trumpism on the international stage. And so I'm not actually sure what they're referring to in terms of Trumpism. I don't like this kind of mindset that people have that Donald Trump has been vastly different than Obama or George Bush in terms of like how he's handled foreign policy, in terms of like how he carries himself. Way different. He's definitely way different in terms of like his rhetoric, just because send tweets about like little rocket man about like Kim Jong-un, stuff like that. I mean, that's you'd never see Obama do something like that. But in terms of like actual like military action, not that different. I mean, Donald Trump has been worse than Obama was, but Obama's arguably worse than George Bush, if you're depending on what you're looking at, if you're talking about like drone strikes. And so there's not this like huge amount of wiggle room between those three presidents. And so I don't know what they mean by unwind Trumpism. It could just mean the way he carries himself, but I doubt it means the more imperialist aspects. The core Biden foreign policy team served in the Obama administration. I mean, that kind of like reaffirms what I was saying just a few seconds ago, is that like Joe Biden is going to be business as usual with as Obama was. It's not going to look that much different other than the way that Joe Biden carries himself. There will be some things that are going to be different. I think we can hope for him to be less aggressive. Here's the thing, when I'm talking about like China and stuff, Joe Biden is being very antagonistic towards China with his rhetoric. But I think that our chances of pulling back Joe Biden away from that as like, voters, I think that is more likely than pulling back Trump. I don't know. I just view Trump as more of a hothead, more of a loose cannon when it comes to stuff like that. And I think that Joe Biden is a little bit more calculated. I don't know how much of these decisions he's actually going to be making for himself, to be totally honest. But the people that he will surround him with, I mean, he's not going to have Mike Pompeo as the Secretary of State. So that is better. Biden and Obama have several serious policy differences. In some cases, Biden played devil's advocate to help Obama arrive at a decision, but there were some genuine divergences. So this part is actually interesting. So it lays out some specific differences that the two of them had. And if these are true, it's not too bad. Biden was for providing the Ukrainians Javelin anti-tank missiles. Obama was opposed. Biden was opposed to erecting a no-fly zone in Libya. Obama imposed one. Biden was against a troop surge in Afghanistan. Obama first added 17,000 and then 30,000. Biden was opposed to calling for Egypt's Hosni Mubarak to leave office. Obama hastened his exit. And so if that's true, that's great. I would love it if Joe Biden was better than Obama in terms of this. We see that the core of their foreign policy staff is basically the same. And like I don't know how much of the show Joe Biden's actually going to be running. If he became president, I feel like he might be a little more laid back and just kind of letting people do it for him. Who knows? But if he really does have some control over this stuff, and this really is where he leans, that's a good thing. And so let's just finish it off. Though Biden's policies would be quite different from Trump's, his team may embrace a tactic that Trump also favors when trying to achieve major strategic goals: overwhelm the circuits and push on multiple fronts at once. That's generic. I don't think this can really be sequenced, Blinken said. I don't think we'll have the luxury of choice. Okay. At the same time, Ned Price, a former CIA and Obama NSC official, says there's an understanding that most of the important things can't be done with a flip of a switch. That's not what you want to hear. That's like, we're gonna try and make things better, but like pulling troops out of Afghanistan, we can't just do that at once. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate for stuff like that. China is not a 100-day project. China is a presidency project, says Cholette, now at the German Marshall Fund. So, I mean, like I said at the beginning, main takeaway, Joe Biden will be better than Donald Trump. Not great. He's not going to be a Bernie Sanders. He's not going to be what a progressive president would actually do. So when people say, "Oh, Joe Biden, most progressive president ever," we're talking about foreign policy. Probably not. But anyway, I found this piece interesting. I definitely, like I said, I'll link it down below. If you disagreed with anything I said in this video, please leave a comment down below. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a great day.